The storm had rolled over a small Arkansas town like a warning. Booming thunder that rattled windows, wind that clawed at rooftops, and a darkness thick enough to blur the edges of everything. But none of that explained why Eli Mercer wasn't home yet. By 10:17 p.m., his wife Lena was already pacing the length of the narrow kitchen, her fingertips drumming against her phone as if forcing it to ring harder would make him answer. The digital clock blinked red numbers in the corner, each minute stretching longer than the last. She dialed him again. And again. Narration carried the unease. She wasn't a woman who panicked easily, not in front of people, not even when she had a reason to. Yet something about this night hooked at her nerves, pulled at her breath, made her chest feel tighter than usual. When the call went to voicemail for the 5th time, Lena pressed her lips together and whispered into the silence. "Pick up, Eli? Please." The storm howled in response. Outside, rain hammered the porch steps with the force of thrown stones. The smell of wet earth seeped into the house every time the old frame shook. It wasn't the kind of night anyone wanted to be driving in, let alone someone exhausted after a 10-hour shift at construction site. But Eli always came home, even when he was late, even when they had fought. And lately, they had fought a lot. Lena walked to the living room window, her silhouette lit faintly by passing lightning. She parted the curtains just enough to stare out at the empty driveway. His truck should have been there. She knew it. Her jaw tightened. For a moment, the narration shifted inward, revealing thoughts she'd never say out loud. He can't do this to me. Not tonight. Not after everything. Her phone buzzed, not a call, but a notification. A local weather alert. Nothing from Eli. By 10:45 p.m., Lena gave up waiting. She grabbed her jacket and keys with quick, sharp motions, like someone trying to outrun a thought that wouldn't stop gnawing at them. The screen door slammed behind her as she stepped into the storm. Wind shoved at her, cold and relentless, but she forced her way to the car. She wasn't going to sit still, not when the fear inside her was already swelling into something bigger. The rural backroads leading out of town were swallowed by darkness. Her headlights carved thin tunnels of light through the sheets of rain. Every bend looked unfamiliar. Every shadow looked like something she didn't want to see. She kept checking the rearview mirror, as if expecting someone to appear there. "Come on, Eli. Where the hell are you?" she muttered, fingers tightening around the steering wheel. At 11:06 p.m., her phone rang. She nearly swerved, snatching it from the passenger seat. But it wasn't Eli. It was Deputy Lance Morrow. "Mrs. Mercer?" His voice crackled through the rain and static. "We've located your husband's truck." Lena swallowed. Hard. W8 where? Old Mill Road. About a mile off Route 3. Engine still warm. Door open. He paused, letting the weight of it sink in. And he's not here. The second the call ended, the narration bled tension. Her breath hitched. Her pulse kicked. Something cold and lead-heavy settled inside her chest. Eli didn't abandon his truck. Eli didn't leave doors open. Eli didn't go missing. Not unless something or someone forced him to. As Lena pulled up to the scene minutes later, red and blue lights strobed violently across the wet trees. Deputy Morrow met her halfway, his expression grim. The truck sat crooked on the roadside, mud splattered along its tires, driver's door yawning open like a wound. Lightning flashed. Thunder hit. And Lena's voice trembled as she whispered, This doesn't make sense." But deep down, beneath the fear, beneath the façade, a darker thought flickered. Maybe it finally happened. The chapter ends as Morrow calls over other deputies to widen the search, their flashlights cutting through the rain. Lena steps back, hugging her arms around herself, watching them. She looks less like a worried wife and more like someone trying to keep a truth buried beneath the storm. The storm had calmed by morning, but the dread in Lena's chest hadn't. A thin mist clung to the Arkansas fields, turning everything pale and ghost-like as sunlight attempted to break through. Police tape fluttered near Eli's abandoned truck, and officers moved with stiff urgency, searching the woods, combing the ditches, following muddy footprints that seemed to dissolve into the earth. Detective Mara Ellison approached Lena, where she sat on the tailgate of a deputy's vehicle, wrapped in a blanket she didn't really need. Her clothes were damp, but her eyes, those were dry. Almost too dry. Mrs. Mercer, Detective Ellison said softly, I need to ask a few more questions. Lena nodded, but her voice was a brittle whisper. Ask whatever you need. Narration painted the space between them. Ellison wasn't new to disappearances, and she knew the look of a grieving spouse. Lena didn't have it. Lena looked like a woman trying to manage a narrative, one breath at a time. Was Eli upset yesterday? Any arguments? Ellison asked. Lena hesitated only a second. No, nothing serious. But the pause was enough. Across the field, Cal Boyd, Eli's closest friend, overheard. He walked over, jaw set, rain-soaked hat in hand. Detective, they've been arguing for weeks. Everyone knows it. Lena stiffened. Cal, don't. No, he snapped, anger cutting to the morning air. He told me things weren't right at home. Said you were distant. Said you barely talked anymore. Lena's expression hardened. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time, Cal muttered. Detective Ellison stepped between them. Let's stay focused, please. But the damage had already been done. Cal had confirmed what Lena tried to hide. A short walk away. Deputies were murmuring about the truck's condition. Keys still in ignition. Mud inside the driver's side, as if Eli had stepped out in a hurry. No signs of a struggle, nothing obvious. Anyway, Detective Ellison returned her attention to Lena. When was the last time you saw your husband? Yesterday morning, Lena said. He left for work early. Cal shook his head in the background, disbelieving. He said they fought the night before. Loud enough the neighbors heard it. Lena's jaw clenched. We argued. Married people argue. That doesn't mean anything. But Ellison noticed a tremor in Lena's fingers, the way she kept squeezing her ring, as if trying to remember what it meant. Narration dug deeper. Eli and Lena had once seemed unbreakable to the people who knew them. Then slowly, quietly, everything had begun to wilt. Missed dinners, silent car rides, nights spent in separate rooms, words spoken too harshly or not at all. The love hadn't vanished. It had rotted piece by piece until resentment was the only thing they shared. Ellison spoke again. Did Eli mention feeling unsafe? Worried about anything? Lena paused longer this time. No, nothing like that. But Cal's face went pale. He told me last week he felt watched, like someone was following him. The detective scribbled quickly. Lena's eyes snapped toward Cal. Why are you doing this? Because something happened to him, he said, and you know more than you're saying. The silence that followed was thick and icy, settling over the field like another layer of fog. Detective Ellison closed her notebook. We'll continue questioning at the station. For now, we're expanding the search perimeter. As Lena stood, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders, her gaze drifted to the tree line where deputies were disappearing into the woods. Her posture stiffened. Something about the forest seemed to disturb her more than she let on. The chapter ends as Detective Ellison watches Lena walk away, her movements controlled, her expression unreadable, and makes a quiet note to herself. Something is off, and the truth is starting to show. Detective Mara Ellison watched Lena from across the station's interview room, the cheap fluorescent lights giving every flicker of emotion on her face a harsh outline. Lena wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't falling apart like spouses usually did when someone vanished into thin air. She was thinking, carefully, calculatingly, and that alone set off alarms. Let's go over it again, Ellison said as she switched on the recorder. You said you and Eli argued 2 nights ago, correct? Lena's eyes flickered downward. Yes, but it wasn't a big deal. Narration cut in sharply. It was a big deal. It had been building for months. An undercurrent of suspicion, whispers of betrayal, and a truth Lena had tried to bury beneath routine, denial, and forced smiles. Ellison leaned forward. Neighbors claim they heard yelling. They exaggerate everything, Lena replied too quickly. A beat of silence stretched across the room, heavy and uncomfortable. Then Ellison opened a folder and slid a photo across the table. Eli, from 2 weeks ago. Face tired, eyes hollow. Cal says Eli wasn't himself recently. Ellison continued. He said Eli was nervous, distracted, afraid something was going to come out. Lena's hands tightened around the edge of the table. Cal doesn't know what he's talking about, but her voice trembled. Just once. Barely noticeable. Ellison noticed. Outside the interview room, rain streaked down the windows in thin, frantic lines, the storm returning as if mirroring the tension brewing inside. Ellison pressed a little harder. What was Eli afraid of, Lena? She shook her head. I don't know. Narration peeled back the truth Lena was trying so hard to conceal. Eli had found something. Emails, messages, hints of betrayal she thought she had erased. He had confronted her. Not calmly, not kindly. Eli's voice had broken that night, not with anger but with devastation. How long has this been going on, Lena? How long have you been lying to me? She had sworn it meant nothing. She had sworn she ended it. She had sworn she chose him. But Eli didn't believe her. He couldn't, not after what he saw. The flashback faded, leaving Lena staring blankly at the wall as Ellison studied her reaction. You're hiding something, the detective said gently but firmly. Something important. No, I'm not. But her voice was flat, the lie thin enough to see through. Ellison didn't push further. Not yet. She stood, gathering the files. We'll continue this later. For now, you're free to go home. If Eli contacts you, calls you, anything, notify us immediately. Lena rose slowly. Of course. But as she left the room, her posture rigid, Ellison watched her with a sinking feeling. Lena wasn't relieved to be going home. She was terrified. Outside, the sky had turned bruised purple with the weight of another storm. Lena pulled her coat tight around her and hurried to her car. But when she opened the door, something tumbled out, a folded scrap of paper she didn't remember placing there. It was soaked from earlier, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Eli's. One line, one sentence, one truth that made her breath stop. I know what you did, and I know who he is. Her knees buckled for a moment. The secret she tried so desperately to bury was clawing its way back to the surface. Lightning cracked across the sky as she slammed the car door, her mind racing. If Eli knew about him, then someone else might too. Rain smeared across Lena's windshield as she drove home, her fingers white-knuckled around the steering wheel. Eli's note, crumpled and damp, sat on the passenger seat, its message echoing in her mind like a threat she could no longer outrun. I know what you did, and I know who he is. She had prayed that Eli never truly understood. Now it was clear he had known more than she realized. By the time she reached her house, a patrol car was waiting in the driveway. Detective Ellison stepped out, her expression unreadable, her coat soaked from the relentless drizzle. Mrs. Mercer, she called. We found something you need to see. Lena froze. What now? Ellison didn't answer. Instead, she guided her toward the back seat of the cruiser where a laptop was open, playing surveillance footage from a gas station camera positioned off Old Mill Road, just half a mile from where Eli's truck was found. The timestamp, 9:42 p.m. just minutes before Eli vanished. The footage played in grainy, weather-bitten clarity. Eli's truck pulled into frame. He stepped out, grabbed something from the passenger side, then leaned against the door as if trying to steady himself. Even from behind, his posture was strained, like a man carrying a burden too heavy for his ribs to hold. Then another figure entered the shot. A tall man, dark jacket, head down, black cap pulled low enough to hide his face. He walked with purpose toward Eli. Not casual, not friendly, predatory. Lena's breath hitched. The man said something, unheard, but sharp enough that Eli visibly tensed. The two stood inches apart, the air between them electric even through the fuzzy footage. Eli shook his head, stepped back. The man followed. Then the footage cut, camera interference from the storm, and the next clear frame showed the man walking away, Eli nowhere in sight. Detective Ellison paused the video. Do you recognize him? Lena forced herself to shake her head. No, I've never seen that man before. Ellison watched her carefully. Too carefully. Narration revealed the truth Lena couldn't bring herself to say. She recognized him instantly. She knew the way he walked. She knew the set of his shoulders. She knew the black cap because she had bought it for him, Drew, but saying his name would be setting fire to the last lie she had. Ellison continued, "We think this man may be connected to your husband's disappearance. We need your help identifying him." I said I don't know him. Lena's voice came out thin, brittle. Behind her, a deputy whispered Ellison, "Look at her. She's scared of him." Lena stiffened. Ellison nodded slowly, filing that observation away. "We'll run the footage through enhancement and cross-check with our database. If anything comes to mind, anything at all, call me." Lena swallowed hard. Of course. She got back into her car, hands trembling. The surveillance footage looped in her mind like a nightmare on repeat. Eli arguing with the man she thought she had kept separate from her marriage. The man she never meant for Eli to see. The man she swore she ended things with. But the footage made one thing undeniable. Even as she tried to bury the past, Drew hadn't. He had found Eli, and Eli had confronted him. Lightning illuminated the house as Lena whispered into the hollow quiet of the car, "What did you do, Drew?" Because if Eli confronted him that night, then Chapter 5 begins with the truth finally having a name, Drew Halston. Detective Mara Ellison didn't wait long to follow the lead from the surveillance footage. By midday, she had a name, one whispered by a clerk who recognized a man in the black cap almost instantly. "That's Drew Halston," the clerk had said. "He works down at the county records office with Eli Mercer." The connection hit Ellison hard. Too close, too convenient, too dangerous. Now, Drew Halston sat in the interrogation room across from her, hands clasped, jaw tight, eyes darting around as if every shadow might accuse him of something he wasn't ready to confront. He looked nothing like a criminal. Clean shirt, neatly trimmed hair, posture stiff with anxiety rather than aggression. But guilt didn't always come with a monster's face. Sometimes it looked exactly like this. A man sweating under the fluorescent lights, wrestling with the weight of his own secrets. Ellison pressed a photo onto the table. The still frame from surveillance footage. Drew flinched before he could stop himself. "You were there," she said quietly. Drew swallowed. "Yeah, I was." "And you approached Eli Mercer." He hesitated. "I just wanted to talk." Narration sharpened. A lie. Not the whole lie, but the first crack in it. "What did you talk about?" Ellison asked. Drew's voice thinned. "Nothing important." Eli vanished minutes later. He met her eyes for the first time. There was fear there, buried beneath something darker. Anger, maybe, or guilt. "I didn't hurt him." "You followed him, didn't you?" "No. You argued with him." Drew's jaw flexed. He looked away. Ellison leaned forward. "Why were you there, Drew?" Silence. Then a whisper. Because of Lena. The name hung between them like a loaded gun. Hours earlier, Lena had sat alone in her house. Staring at the wall as her phone buzzed with calls, she let ring to voicemail. She hadn't told Ellison everything. She hadn't told her that Drew wasn't some stranger from work. He was a secret that had eaten its way into her marriage piece by piece. The narration unspooled her memory. It had started with harmless lunches, then long conversations, then the slow kind of emotional intimacy that feels safe until you realize you're drowning in it. Drew listened to her in ways Eli hadn't for years. He made her feel seen, wanted, understood. It was wrong. She knew that, but the loneliness in her marriage had carved out a space that Drew had stepped into without hesitation. She had tried to end it. She had tried to go back to Eli. She had tried to fix her marriage with trembling hands and half-formed promises. But Drew had taken the breakup harder than she expected. The text got longer, the tone sharper. He swung between pleading and possessive, between heartbreak and fury. And when Eli found the messages, everything shattered. Now, hearing Drew's name spoken aloud in the interrogation room felt like a noose tightening around Lena's throat. Back in the station, Ellison circled Drew like a wolf closing in. "You were having an affair with Mrs. Mercer," she said. He didn't deny it. He just closed his eyes. "And Eli found out," she continued. His voice cracked. "He shouldn't have gone through her phone. He shouldn't have." "Shouldn't have what?" Drew's hands began to tremble. He said things. Threatened her. Said he'd ruin her. Said... Ellison interrupted softly. What happened after the argument at the gas station? For a moment, Drew's facade shattered. His eyes filled with something raw. I told him, Drew whispered, that Lena didn't deserve what he'd done. I told him he needed to leave her alone. And then... a beat. He didn't deserve what happened. Ellison froze. What had happened, Drew? But Drew shut down, jaw locking, expression sealing like a door slamming shut. I want a lawyer. Ellison walked out of the room, feeling the pieces finally beginning to click into place. A love triangle. A betrayal exposed. A confrontation caught on camera. And Eli Mercer disappearing into the storm hours later. But she still needed one thing, the proof hidden in Eli's phone. Aisha stared at the cracked phone screen, as if it were a ticking bomb. The device wasn't even hers. She had found it buried beneath a stack of old receipts in Zion's closet. Yet the moment her fingers swiped across it, a cold shiver crawled up her spine. The phone wasn't locked. No passcode, no fingerprint. Almost as if someone wanted it to be found. The first thing she saw was a notification banner at the top. Unknown. She's getting too close. Handle it. Unknown. Tonight. Aisha's heart slammed against her ribs. Tonight? She clicked the messages, breath shaking. The conversation was short, but every line felt like a knife pressed against her skin. Unknown. The girl knows something. Zion. She won't talk. Unknown. She will. Zion. I'll take care of it before she opens her mouth. Her knees weakened. She sank onto the floor, clutching the phone like it might burn her. The girl? Who were they talking about? Was it her? For a moment, the apartment felt too quiet, as if holding its breath. She replayed every recent moment. Every strange pause in Zion's voice, every locked drawer, every late-night phone call he said was work. The puzzle pieces began snapping together in her mind, forming a picture she never wanted to see. Aisha swallowed hard. These texts weren't about petty secrets or financial debts. This was danger, real, immediate, and pointed directly at her. She forced herself to scroll further. The messages went back weeks. Unknown. What about the brother? Zion. He's already asking questions. Unknown. Don't let him find the file. File? Brother? Questions? She felt her breath hitch. The only brother who mattered in this scenario was hers. Hamza, her protective, stubborn older brother, who had never liked Zion from the start. His warning echoed in her memory. Aisha, something about him isn't right. Had Hamza found something? Had he uncovered whatever Zion was so desperately hiding? Aisha's trembling hand scrolled up, and suddenly a picture loaded, grainy, dark, clearly taken from afar. It was a photo of her walking alone near the old railway tracks 3 nights ago. She remembered the cold wind. She remembered feeling watched. Someone had been there. She slapped a hand over her mouth to silence the gasp. Another image. Her leaving her workplace. Another. Her outside her apartment door. Someone had been documenting her movements. Every step she took. Footsteps echoed in her head. Not real ones' memories. That night, she thought she heard someone trailing behind her. That black car parked too long near her street. The feeling of eyes on her back. It wasn't paranoia. It was surveillance. The phone buzzed suddenly in her hand, nearly sending her into the ceiling. A new message appeared. Unknown. Is she alone now? Aisha's blood turned to ice. A second message appeared almost immediately. Zion. Yes. Her pulse exploded. She scrambled to her feet, nearly tripping over the closet door. She had to get out. Now. Before he walked in. Before he knew she had read everything. Before tonight became exactly what they planned. Her keys. Where were her keys? She snatched them from the dresser, grabbed her bag, and rushed toward the front door when she froze. The doorknob moved. A slow, quiet turn. He was home. The air left her lungs. She stepped back, pressing herself against the wall, clutching the phone against her chest like a shield. The door opened an inch. Then 2. Then fully. Zion stepped inside, expression unreadable, eyes dark and scanning the room. Aisha? He called, his voice calm. Too calm. She didn't answer. His gaze landed on her, then on the phone in her hand. His smile faded. Aisha, he said quietly, we need to talk. Her heartbeat hammered like war drums. She wasn't supposed to survive tonight, but she wasn't going to be silent like they expected. Not anymore. The world seemed to shrink around Aisha as Zion stepped inside, closing the apartment door with a soft, deliberate click. The sound echoed like a verdict. She tightened her grip on the phone, his phone, its screen still glowing faintly with the last message. Tonight, Zion took a slow step forward. You weren't supposed to see that, he said quietly. His tone was not angry. It was worse, controlled, rehearsed, too steady. Aisha felt her pulse in her throat as she backed away, her shoulder brushing the edge of the dining table. What does it mean, Zion? She hated how shaky her voice sounded. Who were you talking about? Who were you planning to take care of? Zion exhaled, rubbing a hand over his jaw. Aisha, listen to me. This isn't what you think. You said I was alone, she shot back, and that you'd handle it. Handle what, Zion? Me? He froze. The muscles in his neck tensed, but he didn't deny it. That alone sent a cold wave crashing through her. He stepped forward again, and instinctively Aisha moved toward the hallway, putting space between them. We can fix this, he said, voice lower. But I need you to put the phone down. No, she whispered. His eyes flickered, some combination of frustration and something darker. Aisha, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder? The word dug into her. She remembered the pictures she saw on the phone, the messages, the surveillance, and suddenly another memory surfaced, his promise on the first night they moved in together. Nothing will ever hurt you as long as I'm here. But now she knew the danger had been standing beside her the entire time. Aisha turned and bolted toward the hallway. Zion cursed under his breath and followed. She darted into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her and locking it. The thin wooden lock clicked into place, trembling just like her hands. Aisha! He barked from the other side, pounding on the door. She didn't waste a second. She rushed to the window, yanked the curtains apart, and shoved the glass upward. It screeched loudly, louder than she wanted. Her breath hitched as she glanced back at the shaking door. Aisha, open it. His voice was no longer calm. It cracked around the edges. She slung her leg over the windowsill. She lived on the second floor. The drop wasn't deadly, but it would hurt. Still better than staying. The door thudded hard, and she heard the lock begin to splinter. Aisha didn't think. She jumped. She crashed onto the patchy grass below, pain shooting up her ankle. She gasped, staggered, nearly fell again, but forced herself to run. She limped toward the streetlights glowing in the distance, clutching the phone like evidence of her life. Behind her, she heard the window slide open. Aisha! Zion's voice ripped through the night. She didn't look back. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. A stray dog barked somewhere in the distance, the only witness to her frantic footsteps. She dug in her bag for her own phone, but realized she had left it in the apartment. All she had was his phone, his secrets, his plan. She turned a corner, breath ragged, ankle throbbing. She spotted a small convenience store still lit up, its neon sign flickering. Sanctuary, or at least people. Just as she neared the entrance, she felt a buzz in her hand. His phone lit up again. Another message. Unknown, is it done? Aisha's stomach twisted. They didn't even know she had escaped. They thought Zion had already silenced her. She stepped inside the store, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. The cashier looked up, startled by her disheveled state. Miss, are you okay? Aisha opened her mouth to speak, but a movement through the glass door caught her eye. A black car, the same one she had seen lingering around her street days ago. It slowed near the storefront. Her breath stopped. This wasn't just about Zion. Someone else was out there, watching, waiting, expecting her to be dead by now. She backed deeper into the store, pulse racing, the weight of betrayal settling heavily in her chest. Zion wasn't acting alone. He never had been. The messages, the photos, the surveillance, All of it pointed to something bigger, something she had accidentally stepped into, and they weren't going to let her walk away. As the car door slowly opened outside, Aisha knew there was only one choice left. She had to run again, and this time, she had to disappear before they made sure she never spoke the truth. Aisha slipped out the back of the convenience store just as the black car's door swung fully open. The night air was damp, heavy with the warning scent of rain. Her injured ankle throbbed, but adrenaline numbed the worst of it. She kept moving, ducking into the narrow alley behind the building. She didn't dare look back. With every step, the world behind her felt like it was closing in. Zion's angry shouts, the unknown sender, the car creeping through the darkness. Every part of her was screaming the same truth. They were hunting her now. She hurried through the alley, emerging onto a dim, muddy trail that snaked behind a row of houses. The ground was wet from a sprinkler system left running, turning patches of earth into sticky sludge. Her shoe sank with a sickening squelch, nearly pulling off as she tried to free it. Not now. She gritted her teeth and kept going. A sudden ringtone shattered the quiet. Zion's phone. She almost dropped it. Another message. Another unknown number. Unknown. She's nearby. You said you handled it. Where is she? Aisha's breath trembled. The words weren't threatening. They were furious, impatient. Whoever was sending them wasn't just involved. They were in control. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the muddy ground at her feet. And something else. A fresh set of footprints. Not hers. Large. Heavy. Leading onto the same trail she was on. Her blood ran cold. Someone had come this way before her, or they were already following. She swallowed hard and scanned the shadows. The houses nearby were dark, quiet, their curtains drawn. No witnesses. No help. Just a faint rustle of leaves and the hum of distant traffic. She moved faster, wincing with each step. Her ankle protested, but fear pushed her forward. The muddy footprints continued ahead, deeper, more defined, as if the person had been running. Then they stopped, abruptly, right at the edge of the trail, where the mud turned to dry ground. Aisha crouched, her heart hammering. There was something else, a faint imprint in the deeper mud, as though someone had stood still for a long time, waiting. She straightened, breath shallow. Did they see me leave the store? Did they wait here for me? She forced her legs to keep moving. The trail grew darker, narrowing between two tall fences. Rain began to fall in soft, relentless sheets, making the ground even more treacherous. The phone buzzed again. A different message this time. Unknown, too. Check the trail behind the houses. She can't outrun him. Her fingers shook. Him. They weren't talking about Zion now. Someone else was out there. Closer than she realized. A twig snapped behind her. Aisha froze. Her breath caught painfully as she turned her head to look over her shoulder. The darkness behind her rippled with movement. Slow, steady footsteps squashing into the mud she had just crossed. Footprints appeared one by one behind her. Fresh, heavy, deliberate. Her stomach twisted. Someone was following her, right now. She bolted forward, ignoring the shooting pain from her ankle. The trail opened into a wide patch of grass, leading to a cluster of storage shed behind an old construction site. Rain soaked her clothes as she pushed toward the largest shed, its metal door slightly ajar. She slipped inside. Cold darkness swallowed her. She pressed her back to the wall, gasping softly, listening to the world outside. The rain intensified, drumming on the rusty roof. For a moment, all she heard was her own ragged breathing. Then crunch, boot steps, right outside the shed. Aisha clamped a hand over her mouth, forcing herself not to make a sound. The shadow of a figure passed across the narrow gap beneath the door. Slowly, purposefully. They knew she was here. Her mind raced. I need to get out. I need to disappear before they find. The phone buzzed violently in her hand. She flinched and looked down. A new message. From an unknown number she hadn't seen before. Unknown 3. Aisha, stop running. Her skin crawled. They knew her name. A faint creak sounded as a hand gripped the shed door from the outside, and with a slow, chilling scrape, the door began to slide open. The shed door slid open with a metallic groan, slicing through the darkness. Aisha pressed herself harder against the cold wall, every muscle trembling, ready to run, ready to scream, ready for the worst. A beam of light swept inside. "Aisha!" a low voice called. "It's me. Don't run." For a heartbeat, she couldn't breathe, not because the voice was threatening, but because she recognized it. Slowly, cautiously, she lifted her head. Standing in the doorway, soaked to the bone, mud streaked up his jeans, breathing hard, was Imran, Zion's co-worker, the quiet one, the man who had always hovered at the edges of their life, never drawing attention, never speaking more than a sentence or two. His flashlight lowered as he stepped inside, gently closing the door behind him. "I'm not here to hurt you." Aisha didn't believe him. Not yet. "What are you doing here?" Her voice cracked. "Why are you following me?" Imran ran a hand through his wet hair, his expression conflicted. "Because Zion isn't the only one who's been keeping secrets. And if you don't hear the truth now, you're not going to survive the night." She stiffened. "The truth? From you?" He nodded. "You deserve to know." Aisha's pulse raced. She didn't trust him, but she wasn't sure she had the strength to run again. Not with her ankle throbbing. Not with the rain pounding so hard that she could barely hear. "Say it," she whispered. "Whatever it is." Imran exhaled shakily. "It started months ago. Zion was changing, getting paranoid, watching you, snooping through your things, asking me questions about your schedule." Aisha felt her stomach twist. "I knew he was acting strange, but that wasn't all," Imran said softly. "He hired someone." The words hit her like a physical blow. "H hired someone? For what?" "To follow you, to record you, to see if you were cheating." Aisha's jaw dropped. I know," Imran interrupted gently. "That's why I tried to make him stop. But he wouldn't listen. He thought you had someone else. He convinced himself of it. He spiraled. His voice broke. And then he involved the wrong people." Aisha felt the cold deepen in her bones. She wrapped her arms around herself. "What people?" Imran looked down at the mud on the floor, at the messy footprints she had left. Then he looked back up, eyes dark with guilt. "People who don't accept loose ends, who don't like being lied to. Zion told them you were planning to expose them, that you had evidence, that you were a threat." A beat of silence. "And now they think their contract is still active." Aisha swallowed hard. "A contract on who, Imran?" He hesitated. Then, "On you." Her legs went weak. She grabbed the edge of a dusty shelf to steady herself. Imran stepped closer, hands raised. "I didn't agree with any of this. I tried to warn Zion. I told him he was playing with fire. And when I found out he told him you were handled tonight," he closed his eyes, the shame pulling across his face. "I knew you were in danger. I had to find you before they did." The phone in Aisha's hand buzzed again. Another message. But she didn't look at it. Her voice came out small, trembling. "Why are you helping me?" A silence. Then Imran answered with something she never expected to hear. "Because I loved you long before Zion ever noticed you." Aisha's breath caught. The shed suddenly felt too small, too dark, too full of truths she wasn't ready for. "I never meant for you to know," he said quietly. "I never meant to drag you into this. But if you want to survive, I need you to trust me, just this once. Tell me everything. What you found, what he said, what he's planning." Aisha's throat tightened. She didn't want to speak. She didn't want to confess anything, especially not to the one person who had silently loved her from the shadows. But the danger pressing in on her was real, immediate. She had no choice. And so, trembling, she told him. She told him everything. About the messages, the surveillance, the secret meeting, the threat she overheard, and the fear that Zion was no longer acting out of jealousy, but out of desperation. When she finished, Imran's expression hardened with something dark and determined. "They're closer than you think," he murmured. "And now that they know you're alive," he grabbed her hand. "We have to move. Now." Rain roared against the shed roof as footsteps splashed through the mud outside. The rain fell harder as Imran yanked the shed door open and pulled Aisha into the darkness outside. The world was a blur of cold air, mud, and rushing water. Her ankles screamed in protest, but there was no time. She could hear voices somewhere behind them, muffled but getting closer. "This way," Imran whispered urgently, guiding her toward the slope behind the construction site. Beyond the fence line, she could hear it, the low, relentless roar of the river, the Arkansas River, wide, fast, swollen from days of rain. "The river?" Aisha gasped. "Are you insane?" "We can't. We're out of options," Imran said, breathless. "They're tracking your phone. They'll expect you to run by the roads." "Not here." A thunderclap split the sky, illuminating the muddy slope they were descending. The ground was slick and unstable. Water trickled down in streams, forming small rivulets that rushed toward the darkness below. Aisha slipped, but Imran caught her, his hands firm on her arms. "I won't let you fall," he murmured. For a moment, she saw him not as Zion's co-worker or a secret admirer, but as the only person standing between her and whatever nightmare was unfolding behind them. Another voice echoed from up the hill. Closer, angrier. "Move!" Imran hissed. They stumbled down the slope until the river finally came into view, wide, violent, its surface churning like something alive. The currents twisted in sharp, unpredictable spirals. Even standing near the bank felt dangerous, as though the water themselves were trying to pull them in. Aisha shivered. "Imran, this river has taken people before." "That's why we're using it," he said grimly. "It hides things." She stared at him, shocked by the cold edge in his voice. He met her gaze. "I don't mean us, Aisha. I mean our trail." He pointed toward a fallen tree lodged against the bank. Branches tangled wildly around it, forming a natural barrier that might provide shelter. "If we stay low and move along the edge, the rain will wash away our tracks." Another shout echoed from behind, then a second one, much closer. Aisha felt panic claw up her throat. She grabbed Imran's arm. "They're coming!" Imran's eyes hardened. "Then we go. Now." He helped her toward the fallen tree, wading knee-deep into the icy water. Aisha hissed as the cold sliced through her clothes, but she forced herself to follow. Her breath came in short, desperate bursts as the current tugged at her legs. "Hold on to me," Imran said. "If you lose balance, I won't," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it. They moved slowly, carefully, the river trying to swallow every step they took. The muddy bank dissolved under their feet, and twice Imran had to pull her upright as the current nearly dragged her under. Then, a flash of light behind them. A flashlight beam. Voices. "Down there," someone shouted. Aisha's heart plummeted. "They see us. SSH." Imran pressed her back against a fallen tree trunk. Rain hammered the leaves overhead. "Stay still." They crouched beneath the thick branches, river water rushing around their legs. The cold was unbearable, numbing, but Aisha forced herself not to move, not to breathe too loudly. Footsteps approached the riverbank, crunching, sliding, stopping only a few feet above them. A man's silhouette stood at the edge, looking down. A cap, dark jacket, a gun at his side. Aisha's blood turned to ice. The man scanned the river, the mud, the trees, then clicked the radio. "She came this way," he said. "Her prints stop here." They didn't get far. Another voice crackled over the radio. "Search the water." Aisha's lungs tightened painfully. If they came any closer, if they stepped down the bank, they would see her. They would see both of them. The man moved along the edge, sweeping his flashlight across the swirling water. The beam passed dangerously close to their hiding place, lighting up the branches around them before sliding away. Imran held her hand under the water, squeezing once. Reassurance or a warning, she wasn't sure. Minutes crawled by like hours. Finally, the man muttered something into the radio and began moving downstream. Only when the footsteps faded did Aisha allow herself to breathe. Imran leaned close, voice barely a whisper. "We can't stay here. There's only one place left." Aisha looked at him, trembling. "Where?" Imran swallowed hard. The river bends into the old quarry. If we don't reach it before they circle back, we won't make it out. A distant shout echoed again. They were returning. Imran grabbed her hand. Come on. This river isn't going to spare us twice. The river narrowed as they followed its curve, the roar growing softer, but no less dangerous. The rain had eased slightly, replaced by a cold, misty fog that clung to the trees and muted every sound. Aisha clung to Imran's arm, teeth chattering, exhausted in every way a person could be. Not much farther, Imran murmured, but even he sounded unsure. The quarry loomed ahead, a dark hollow carved into the earth, abandoned for years. The place was infamous in local whispers. Trespassers, unsolved drownings, disappearances. People said the water there seemed to swallow more than it should. Aisha never imagined she would see it up close, or that she would be running for her life toward it. They reached the embankment leading into the quarry basin. The ground was slick with mud, and the air thick with silence. Aisha's ankle buckled, and she stumbled, falling hard onto her hands. Aisha! Imran dropped to her side. I can't. She winced as she tried to stand. I can't keep running like this. Imran looked at her with a helplessness she hadn't seen before. We don't have a choice. If they catch up... But she wasn't listening anymore, because something else had caught her attention. A sound, soft, measured, coming from deeper within the quarry. Footsteps. Imran noticed her focus shift and turned sharply. Stay behind me. Aisha pulled herself upright, leaning against a boulder. Her breath clouded in the cold air as she strained to hear. The footsteps grew closer. Then a voice. Aisha? Her heart plunged to the bottom of her stomach. No, not him. The fog parted just enough to reveal a tall figure standing at the edge of the basin, clothes drenched, breathing hard. Zion. His eyes locked onto hers instantly, wild, frantic, but unmistakably relieved. There you are, he rasped. You're hurt. Aisha stared in disbelief. You're following me? After everything? After what you planned to do? Zion lifted his hands in surrender. Aisha, please. You don't understand what's happening. Imran stepped in front of her, blocking Zion's path. Stay back. Zion's eyes narrowed. Of course. You're here. Figures. Imran didn't flinch. She's not going anywhere with you. Zion took a slow step forward. You think I'm the villain here, Imran? You think I don't know about you? The late-night messages. The way you looked at her. You were in our house more than I was. That was your doing. Imran snapped. You pushed her away. You scared her. You made her believe she was losing her mind. Aisha felt sick as the two men stood facing each other, the truth twisting between them like a live wire. Zion's expression softened, unexpectedly. His shoulders sagged, as if the weight of everything finally broke him. They lied to me, he whispered. Those men. The contractors. Lena, she told me she could fix things. Aisha blinked. Lena? Who is Lena? Zion swallowed hard, wet hair clinging to his forehead. She's the one who convinced me you were unfaithful, that I needed to protect myself. She sent the photos. The messages. She made me believe you wanted to ruin me. Aisha felt the ground tilt. Lena made this happen? She's been twisting everything for months, Zion said. She wanted control. She wanted leverage. And she wanted you gone. I didn't hire those men. She did. Imran stiffened. Zion, stop. This isn't the time for... But Aisha lifted a trembling hand. No, let him finish. Zion stepped closer, voice breaking. I confronted her tonight. I told her I wanted out. She said anyone who knew the truth would pay the price. A cold wind swept through the quarry, carrying the distant echo of voices, men shouting orders, searching. They're not after you, Zion said softly. They're after all of us. Because Lena told them we knew. The truth hit Aisha like a punch to the chest. Lena wasn't just involved. She was the architect, the betrayer she never saw coming. Aisha's pulse thundered in her ears. Her voice wavered. She did all of this? Zion nodded. I'm sorry, Aisha. I should have seen it. I should have believed you. But it's too late now unless... A sharp crack echoed overhead. A gunshot. It ricocheted off the quarry walls. Then a voice, cold, female, unmistakably calm. "I was hoping you'd all be together." A silhouette appeared at the top ridge of the quarry. Lena, with a gun in her hand. The morning after Lena's breakdown in the interrogation room, the sheriff's office felt unnaturally still, like the quiet after a storm that everyone knew hadn't truly passed. Frank Harris stood in his office doorway, a paper cup of burnt coffee cooling in his hand, staring at the stack of files he had been avoiding for months. Michael Rhodes, the man whose murder had started everything, the man who never got justice. Frank settled behind his desk and thumbed open the first folder. Photographs spilled out. Michael's smiling face at a backyard barbecue, his body draped with sheet on that cold stretch of riverbank, the bloody imprint of a struggle carved into the mud. He winced. He hated looking at the dead, especially the ones who didn't deserve to be. He remembered the day he'd met Michael's wife. Carla Rhodes had stood in the doorway of her living room with swollen eyes and impeccable posture, as if refusing to collapse was the only thing keeping her breathing. She'd handed him a framed picture of Michael. "So you don't forget who he was," she'd said, but Frank hadn't needed it. Michael's case had burned into his memory long before the frame ever touched his hands. But the truth was brutal. The case had gone cold. Leads had dried up. Witnesses had lied. And Frank, he had failed, until Lena Mason walked into his life. He had hoped, naively, desperately, that her disappearance would be the thread that finally unraveled everything. Lena had been connected to Michael, even if she tried to outrun it. Her panic, her secrecy, her collapse in the interrogation room, all of it pointed to something bigger, something darker. Frank closed his eyes, replaying her last words before she broke down completely. "If I tell you the truth, it won't just ruin me. It'll ruin everything." At the time, he couldn't make sense of it. But now, after the river, after finding Michael's missing watch in Lena's hidden box, after seeing her flinch when his name was mentioned, it was impossible to ignore. There was a reason she ran. There was a reason she lied. And there was a reason Michael Rhodes ended up dead. Frank stood abruptly, the chair scraping back. He paced the office, tension building behind every step. For months, he'd accepted a version of the story that made no sense. An affair gone wrong, an argument by the river, a shove, an accident. That was the official record, the one the town swallowed because the truth was too tangled to stomach. But now he knew the case hadn't been mishandled. It had been buried. Someone had wanted Michael Rhodes gone, and someone had made sure Lena kept quiet. Frank stopped pacing as a realization tightened around his ribs. If Lena had been running from her own guilt, she would have vanished long ago. But she stayed, close enough to be watched, close enough to be silenced. That meant one thing. She wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting someone else. A chill slid down Frank's spine. And that someone was still out there. He grabbed his keys, adrenaline sharpening his thoughts. This wasn't just about Michael anymore. Lena's life, what was left of it, hinged on uncovering the truth before it swallowed her whole. As Frank pushed out of the office and into gray morning light, one thought echoed louder than his footsteps. The real killer was still breathing, still watching, still waiting. And for the first time in months, the case wasn't cold anymore.